before the first kingdom was built, before the first empire rose and fell, before humanity gave names to the stars, there was one question. Not a question of power, not a question of who ruled the heavens, but a question much, much deeper. What does it mean for something to truly be a god? Because many worlds have gods. They are ancient, they are powerful. They command storms, oceans, death, and life itself. But there's something strange about these beings. They still belong to the universe. They are born from something. They exist within something. They follow rules that were already there. They may sit above kings. They may be worshipped by civilization, but they are still part of creation. They are not the beginning. They are simply the greatest creature inside of it. The God of this world is something different. A true God is not a being with the highest amount of power. A true God is the reason power exists at all. He does not live inside time. Time exists because he allows it. He does not live inside reality. Reality exists because he sustains it. The laws of nature, the movements of the stars, the existence of souls. All of these things are not independent from him. They are consequences of him. Everything that exists does so because existence itself is permitted. And this creates the first mystery. If everything comes from God, why would anything ever want to destroy him? Perhaps the most fascinating rebellion is not the rebellion against a king. It is the rebellion against the Creator. Because a king can be replaced, a ruler can be defeated, a tyrant can fall. But why does one rebel against the source of everything? The answer is not always hatred, sometimes it is pain. A being looks at existence and asks, why was I created without my permission? Why must I experience suffering? Why must I follow a design I never chose? The rebellion begins with a thought, a simple thought. What if existence itself is unfair? What if the Creator made a flawed world? What if freedom means escaping the hands that created you? And from this idea, two paths emerge. One path seeks to destroy the Creator. The other seeks to replace him. The first comes from suffering. The second comes from pride. The desire to take the throne is perhaps the most dangerous temptation of all, because many do not desire the burden of creation. They desire only the authority. They want the crown, but not the responsibility that comes with wearing it. But there is a problem. A rebellion against an ordinary ruler is possible because both sides exist on the same level. A soldier can defeat a king. A mortal can kill another mortal. A creature can destroy another creature. But if God exists beyond creation, how does creation fight its own source? A flame cannot burn the sun. A shadow cannot consume the light that created it. A river cannot rise above the ocean it came from. To defeat God, something would need to exist outside him, beyond his knowledge, beyond his influence, beyond his design. But if God is truly the foundation of existence, what place could possibly be outside of him? The greatest rebellion imaginable is one that believes it can surprise a being who already knows every possibility, a rebellion where the ending is already known, and yet it still happens. But another mystery appears. If God exists beyond reality, how could anyone know? How could a mortal being, trapped in time and limited by senses, understand something beyond time itself? Maybe this is why humanity has always searched. Across every age, across every civilization, people have looked beyond themselves. Some saw God in the sky. Some saw spirits in nature. Some worshipped ancestors. Some worshipped kings. Some worshipped concepts like the war, knowledge, beauty, or death. The name changed, the symbols changed, but the search remained. Humanity has always looked upward. Perhaps because humans have always known something. They are dependent. A person does not create their own existence. They enter a world already moving. They depend on parents, society, on countless invisible systems they never created. From the moment life begins, every person learns the same lesson. You are part of something greater. Maybe that is why miracles have always fascinated humanity. Not because they prove anything, but because they suggest a possibility. That reality may be deeper than what we can be seen. Throughout history, there have been stories of impossible events, encounters with angels, visions, signs, moments where people believed the world became thin, as if something beyond it briefly touched the surface. Perhaps reality has layers. Perhaps what humans call the physical world is only the outer shell of something greater. After all, even consciousness itself remains mysterious. The ability to think, to question existence, to look at the universe and ask why there is anything at all. Maybe the strangest miracle is not something that breaks the law of reality. Maybe the strangest miracle is that reality exists in the first place. And this leads to one of the greatest mysteries of the world. If there is a true God, where do the other gods come from? The answer may be stranger than expected. Perhaps they are not enemies of God. Perhaps they are not even completely false. Perhaps they are something born from humanity itself, a reflection, a distortion, a shadow created when something looks towards the divine, but loses sight of the source, because attention has power. Faith has power. Desire has power. Human beings give meaning to things, and when enough people devote themselves to an idea, that idea begins to take shape. A god of war is born from endless conflicts. A god of greed is born from endless desire. A god of vengeance is born from generations of hatred. These beings may answer prayers. They may grant miracles. They may offer blessings, but there is a cost. Because they are not creators, they cannot give what they do not possess. They do not create life. They consume what already exists. They are echoes of something greater, and an echo can sound powerful, but an echo is never the voice itself. Among all beings who ever looked upon creation, none understood its beauty more than Lucifer. He was not born weak. He was not created ignorant. He was not a creature of darkness. Lucifer was one of the closest beings to the source of creation, a being of light, a being of knowledge, a being who saw more of God besides than almost anything else. And perhaps that was why his rebellion was so dangerous, because Lucifer did not fall because he did not understand. He fell because he believed he understood too much. He looked upon humanity, small, fragile, temporary. Creatures who made mistakes, creatures who suffered, who questioned, and he saw something that disturbed him. God loved them. Not because they were perfect, or that they were powerful, but simply because they existed. And Lucifer could not understand. Why would the creator of everything give such importance to creatures so flawed? Why would beings who constantly fail receive such mercy? Why would humanity be offered forgiveness when angels had existed for ages? To Lucifer it seemed unfair, a flaw in the design, a weakness in the system. And from that thought came the first rebellion. Not, I hate God, but I believe God is wrong. Lucifer believed he was fighting injustice. He believed he was correcting a mistake, but slowly something changed. The desire to fix creation became the desire to control it. The desire to challenge God became the desire to replace him, because there is a dangerous transformation that happens when someone believes they are more righteous than the source of righteousness itself. They stop seeking truth. They start seeking authority. Lucifer did not simply want freedom. He wanted the throne. He wanted the ability to decide what should exist, what deserved life, love, and mercy. And that was the moment he misunderstood the nature of God, because God's power was never just the ability to command. It was the responsibility to carry everything, the weight of every soul, every mistake, every tragedy, every moment of suffering. A ruler carries a crown. A creator carries existence itself. Lucifer wanted the power of creation without carrying the burden of creation. When Lucifer fell, he did not create evil. Evil was not another force equal to God. Evil was not a second creator, it was something more subtle, a corruption, a distortion, or a wound. Like a beautiful song played incorrectly, like a mirror that reflects the world but twists the image. The first shadow entered creation, and from that shadow came temptation, not the desire to destroy everything, but the desire to reshape everything. To convince creation that it could become something greater without its creator, and humanity became the battlefield, not because humans were weak, but because humans were valuable. Every soul became a choice, a question, a decision between trust and pride. The greatest war in this universe is not fought with swords. It is not fought with armies or between heaven and hell. The greatest war is fought over something much quieter, attention. Because what humanity looks toward, humanity becomes. A person who worships power begins to resemble power. A person who worships revenge becomes consumed by revenge. And a person who worships greed becomes unable to see anything beyond possession. And slowly, the things humans worship begins to gain form. This is how false gods are born. Not from nothing, but from pieces of humanity. They are made from fear, desire, and desperation. From every part of humanity that wants a shortcut. They promise strength without sacrifice, knowledge without wisdom, immortality without meaning, freedom without responsibility. They are offering everything God offers, but twisted. These false gods are strange beings because they are not completely fake. They exist, they can answer prayers, they can grant power, they can perform wonders. A person who gives their life to the god of vengeance may become unstoppable. The same for the god of ambition may rise above everyone else. A person who serves the god of greed may gather endless wealth. The problem is not that these gods have power. The problem is that their power has a source. They are fed by humanity. The god of war requires conflict, greed, endless hunger, hatred, hate. They cannot exist without the wounds of those who worship them. They are not creators, they are parasites. They do not bring people closer to what they seek. They turn the search itself into chains. Perhaps the most dangerous thing about a false god is that they often do give something, because if they give nothing, nobody will follow them. A false god may heal, a false god may protect, and a false god may grant miracles. But every gift has a hidden cost, because they cannot give freely. They must take from somewhere. Power requires sacrifice. Immortality requires losing something human. Knowledge requires losing innocence. Strength requires losing peace. Every false god offers a blessing, but leaves a curse behind, because they are incomplete reflections of the true source. A broken mirror can still reflect light, but it cannot create it. The greatest fear of many followers is simple. What if humanity forgets God? What if the world becomes so consumed by false gods that the true one disappears? But perhaps this misunderstands what God is. A king can be forgotten, a nation can disappear, a story can fade, but can existence forget its own foundation? If every breath, every soul, every moment of reality is connected to creation, then perhaps God is not something humanity needs to discover. Perhaps God is something humanity is constantly surrounded by. The problem is not absence, the problem is distraction. Humanity does not lose God because God disappears. Humanity loses sight because it looks at everything else. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is why God allows it. Why allow false gods to rise? Why allow rebellion or suffering? If God can stop everything, why wait? Maybe because forced love is not love. A world without choice is not a world of souls. A creature that can only obey is not truly choosing. Perhaps the reason darkness exists is because freedom itself requires the possibility of turning away. And perhaps God does not seek servants who cannot rebel. Perhaps he seeks beings who could reject him and still choose him. This world is not a story about whether God wins. This question was answered before the first star even burned into existence. The Creator does not struggle against creation as equals locked into conflict. There is no war of strength. There is no contest of endurance. There is only origin and what flows from it. So the question was never about victory. The question was always about recognition. What happens to everything that exists between the beginning and the end? What do souls become when they are given freedom to choose? What do they worship when fear takes the place of clarity? What do they reach for when power becomes more tempting than the truth? Because in the silence of existence, every being is placed before the same crossroads, to acknowledge the source or to turn away from it. But turning away is never as simple as walking in the opposite direction. To reject the Creator is not only to deny something above you. It is to slowly loosen your grip on everything that allows you to exist at all. Because creation is not separate from origin, it is sustained by it. And when a being begins to reject the source of what it is, it does not become free. It becomes unanchored, drifting further into reflection of something real but no longer able to touch it directly. This is where the false light begins to form, not as enemies, not as challengers, but as substitutes. Echoes cast against the wall of perception, and like prisoners staring at shadows flickering across stone, many begin to believe the reflection is the whole reality. They call it power, truth, and freedom. But it's only the cave convincing its prisoners that darkness is illumination. And so the final question is not whether God exists. It is not whether creation has a source. It is whether we are willing to step beyond the comfort of distorted light, or whether we are clinging to the shadows simply because they are easier to understand. Because in the end, every soul stands before the same truth. To accept the source of its being, it is to accept itself fully. But to reject it, it is not to escape existence, it is to slowly misunderstand it, until even the self becomes something unrecognizable. And so the question remains, quiet and unavoidable, beneath all things. Will we return to what made us? Or will we mistake the echo for the origin? Thank you for watching.